we woke up this morning to great news. Ken Dorsey was let go, and so was Andy Dickerson, the offensive line coach. Here's the thing about Andy Dickerson is I read online last week that Vrabel's essentially been coaching the offensive line the last month or two. Like, what is it? I don't even know what the guy was doing then. If Vrabel's doing it, I don't know what Andy Dickerson's even been doing. So the offensive line fell off, and we talked a lot about the scheme and trying to get players to do stuff that they're not great at. But man, the drop off in offensive line play was not a great representation of good offensive line coaching. And then obviously Ken Dorsey being, I think even more so than anything that happened in Cleveland this year, the biggest indictment against Ken Dorsey is what's happening in Buffalo since he left. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's hard. You can't argue for Ken Dorsey. And I saw some people there's some people who just hate Kevin. Yeah. And they're saying Kevin scapegoated Ken. He gave him the play calling after the starting quarterback got hurt. Ken Dorsey never got to call plays with the starting quarterback, yada, yada, yada. Ken Dorsey was so bad as an offensive coordinator in Buffalo that he had the world believing Josh Allen had regressed and that the Bills Super Bowl window was closed. But when he got fired, there were people going, the Bills might be on their way down already. Josh Allen is regressing. And he let him go, and Josh Allen is now the favorite to win the MVP, and they are the 2 seed in the AFC in a legit Super Bowl contender. That's a bigger indictment against Ken Dorsey than even anything that happened this year in Cleveland.
Let me run through some of these numbers for you guys. Anybody out there who does what you just said, think that it was, Ken Dorsey's being scapegoated, this was Kevin's, offense or whatever. We all know Ken Dorsey was hired to come in and implement a new offense. We saw it. The Browns ran 727 pass plays this year to 391 run plays. It was a 65-35 split. Under Kevin, it was never more than like a 40 or 55-45 kind of split. This was drastic this year. Heavy pass, and that's what they told us they were going to do. And they did it. The offense, just 15.2 points per game, fewest in the NFL. Just 27 total touchdowns scored, fewest in the NFL. 300 yards per game, fifth fewest in the NFL, would be the fewest if not for the 7-game Winston run. Most penalties in the NFL, most pre-snap penalties in the NFL. 34 turnovers, most turnovers in the league, second year in a row. And the Browns, this isn't offense, but to kind of go with that, the Browns defense had the second fewest takeaways this season with just 12. Differential was negative 22, worst in the NFL. Yep. So those numbers right there tell you why we were lucky to be 3-14.
That's why we fired everybody last year. Like, it's so ridiculous. That's my takeaways from it. I mean, I got the same numbers: 15.2, 29.5, 66, and 23. That's basically the points we averaged, the third down efficiency, and the sacks we yielded, and the interceptions that we did. It's all worse than last year, and we're supposed to be better, and we're not, with the highest paid roster.
Here's what's sad about those offensive numbers, especially like yards, points, all that good stuff. They are severely inflated by the 7 games with Winston.
Yep.
So like we went from struggling to throw for 130, 150 yards to all of a sudden getting 300-yard passing games out of Winston for a bunch of games in a row. If you take away Jameis Winston's games, who knows how bad this offense would have been statistically and where we would have ranked historically. It would be off the charts bad. These numbers are grossly inflated by the 7-game stretch with Winston.
I said 27 total touchdowns. How many did Jameis throw? I think it was like 13 touchdowns. Without those, we could have easily been under 20 touchdowns total this season. And let me go on a little spiel here for everybody. So I've seen a lot of people online, social media, saying that this season felt just as bad, if not worse, than the 1-31 seasons. So I wanted to look at the numbers. This season, the Browns had 34 turnovers to just 12 takeaways, like I just said, a negative 22 turnover differential. In 2016, 2017, the 1-31 era, the Browns had 25 turnovers and 13 takeaways for a negative 12 differential in 2016. And then they had a whopping 41 turnovers in 2017 and just 13 takeaways for a negative 28 differential, which was easily the worst that year. The offense this season, like I said, 15.2 points per game, worst in the league. In 2016, it was 16.5, so better. 2017, it was 14.6, so a little worse. This season, the Browns scored a league low 27 touchdowns. In 2016, the offense scored 28, so more than this team. And in 2017, 27, the same amount as this team. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of the ball, the Browns gave up 28.3 points per game in 2016, which was the third most in the league, and they gave up 25.6 points per game in 2017, which was the second most. This season, 25.6 points per game allowed, fourth most in the league. So everything about this season, offense, defense, those kinds of numbers, what they're giving up, what they're averaging, it was very much on par with those 1-31 seasons, except for the money that the Browns spent on the roster, like Kenny alluded to. In 2016, the Browns spent 70% of the cap. In 2017, they spent just 62% of the cap. This season, the Browns spent 83.3% of the cap, which is a 33% increase in their cap allocation between 2017, the team that went 0-16, and this team that just won 3 more games than that team.
It's almost hard to wrap your brain around.
It's a lot
and Miles talked about it being more disappointing, and the expectations, like, it's just to come off the season we just had last year where we make the playoffs with 5 different starting quarterbacks, and we come into this season and it's not like we went, 9 wins. We didn't go 9-8 and just miss out and we just didn't quite live up to it, but we're right there. We fell off a cliff.
Dude, we did episodes before the season talking about what constitutes a successful season versus a failure in 2024. And we argued how many playoff games they had to win for this year to be a success. That looks like a joke now, but that's where we were with expectations.
Were you surprised that the only change is Dorsey and Dickerson? I know a lot of people were throwing out Bubba Ventrone's name and stuff like that. I think Bubba Ventrone's still highly looked upon inside the organization and even outside the organization.
I agree, and a lot of it too is you look at a guy like Deuce Staley. How do you evaluate him? Your offensive line was awful. You provided no pass game or any kind of semblance of structured offense for this guy to develop his quarterbacks. You can only do so many spirited practices, let's say, to get your guys ready. I would even say, a lot of people are calling for O'Shea, I meant to say, and I thought his receivers looked pretty much prepared except Thrash. And I don't know if you're Thrash, you're put in this position on this offense that seems like a lot of veterans weren't getting it at the time. So, how do you evaluate that guy? But I'm okay with O'Shea. And then our guy, the assistant offensive line coach, that guy looks shot out of a cannon every morning. So, I don't know if he can't fire you up, I don't know who can. And then Tommy Rees, I'm like, I guess Vrabel was helping him a lot, but at the end of the day, I don't know how you evaluate him other than he's going to throw his name in for offensive coordinators, what I hear.
I have zero interest at the moment. Maybe things will change as we get new information. But right now, I've said it before during the season, I really don't want anything to do with anybody who was brought in to design this offensive scheme this year. If you were involved this year, probably just need a whole new batch of folks in here. But
Bubba, that would be Kevin Stefanski.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm talking the guys who were hired last year to come in and do it. Kevin's been here for 5 years, but I think that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if Tommy Rees is to be considered for offensive coordinator, and if they truly are giving Kevin control back, tells me that he didn't have much to do with what was going on this year.
I don't believe he did. Yeah.
Do you guys feel good about? So obviously, it kind of seems like they're just going to hand it back to Kevin. Hey, it's your show now. We tried this. How do you feel about that moving forward? Because to me, it tells me they don't plan on building around Deshaun anymore. Like this whole season was about making Deshaun work. That's why you went and hired all these new guys and why you brought in Ken Dorsey. If they're going to give Kevin his full control and he's going to run whatever offense he runs, maybe even he calls plays and he's going to bring an offensive coordinator that he wants, which call me crazy, but if they fired Gerard Mayo in New England, I could see Alex Van Pelt back in this building, especially if Kevin didn't want to get rid of him.
He's on the list, just so you know.
Yeah, like I could see him being right back in the building. But I lost my train of thought because I started thinking about Alex Van Pelt randomly. But
let me just say,
do you feel good about Kevin being back in control?
I would say 100%, man, because I would be excited. I think we've touched on it numerous times through the season. You have this two high safety bubble shell defenses that are really stymieing the league, but that's plays to Kevin's strengths, correct? So we would need to draft a running back and just get him back to where it used to be. I'm just super perplexed that with all the analytics that they couldn't come to this conclusion and go this way and couldn't have circumvented this Dorsey hire. I thought that's what analytics was for. Like I understand its stats and that kind of stuff, but for some reason, D. Podesta couldn't get there. We are back in the old school thought of throw it around the yard like Pat Mahomes was doing when he was winning his first championships. And I just don't get that. And that's another guy that still don't know why he's here.
Yeah, that's the next name I'm looking for.
I'll say this too is I like the season had gone off the rails. We weren't doing anything this year. I think firing them the day after your last game on Sunday. They didn't wait till Black Monday. It tells me they knew that it wasn't working, but they weren't going to fire him in season. I think teams that fire coaches in season, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good to your locker room. It doesn't look good outside the organization. Like just you're in turmoil all the time. You're bailing on the season. Like they knew these guys are gone as soon as the season's done. But we're here now. We're not gonna look like a dumpster fire. Yeah, we're going to keep it in house and we will handle it at the end of the season.
I think bad teams that do that, the optics are bad. But I mean, if you're a good team and you want to compete and you have the pieces like the Bills last year, I didn't think it looked bad for them to fire Dorsey, especially when they made the turnaround. So it just kind of depends on your situation. But this season, I know I bitched all the time. They need to get rid of Dorsey. It was a lost season from about 4 weeks in. So honestly, it really wouldn't have mattered. You're right. But if this is the plan to go back to Kevin, and until we get word of that, I'm not going to trust anything. They might hire a new OC and we're going to have all kinds of different conversations. But if the plan is Kevin and his offense and all that kind of stuff, I want them to let him just pick the quarterback. Like I want him to have full control, no Depot, no Barry, no analytics. Kevin, who do you think can run your offense the best? We'll get a veteran guy in here. Maybe we'll get somebody in the second or third round of the draft to, groom underneath you with this veteran. Maybe it's Kirk Cousins, whoever it is, but let him pick it. Let him have full control and quit meddling with these football decisions, especially the dude from San Diego. I'm sick and tired of that.
We were texting about this in the one text thread we have from the Dog Pack. A lot of Browns fans, they crap on Kevin. They say scapegoats people, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying Kevin is perfect, but I'm saying since day one of taking this job, he has coached in complete chaos for 4 straight years now in terms of COVID, injuries to his quarterback, a suspended quarterback, more injuries to the suspended quarterback. Just he's coached in complete chaos. And I don't even know how much control he's had over some of the decisions. And that's speculation. I don't know. But what has he done? He's managed to take us to the playoffs twice. We've won a playoff game. And he's won Coach of the Year twice. I'm not saying Coach of the Year makes him untouchable, but I'm saying not many other coaches coach in this kind of turbulence and chaos and make it through 4 years with anything to show for it. Not alone 2-time Coach of the Year and 2 playoff appearances. You know what I mean? Imagine what this guy could do with just a tiny bit of stability at the quarterback position. Just a tiny bit.
No kidding. And let's not pretend like we're not talking about an organization here that track record is the owner deciding what quarterback to pick in the first round, or GMs texting coaches on the sideline telling them what players to put in. If you don't think that this organization has a track record of the front office and ownership meddling in football on-field decisions, then you guys haven't been following this team. It's what they do. And there's no reason to believe that's not happening with Kevin. Somebody was arguing with me on Facebook today that, Kevin is a bad coach because he did not bench Deshaun Watson when he was underperforming. I said, if you think that he even had the option to bench Deshaun Watson, then you're not following this team. That was not a choice. He was playing no matter what, except for unless there was an injury. It's the only way he's coming off the field this year.
No, yeah, this was Deshaun's year, and they didn't go and hire an all new coaching staff just to give the bench Deshaun after 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And even though we all wanted them to, this season was either going to be a great season with Deshaun or it was going to be this year. And it sucks for us, but it ended up being this season. And now hopefully we are done and we're washing our hands of it and we're moving on.